Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Isaac. We have another special daily on our hands, and what seems very odd to me is that these special dailies, even though that they're 3 a month, they're really not spaced out that much, so you would end up having like a month in the break in between without special dailies, and then you would have maybe 2 or 3 special dailies in a very short span amount of time, or at least up until this point this is how I felt they're structured. But I know that because these dailies are taken up by holidays and other special dates, they really don't have much control over which dailies they actually put in, so you can't really change the date. So for that reason, I guess it may seem like we have a few of these dailies kind of bundled up together. In this case, I'm not really sure what the occasion is, but I do know that we started with Parasite, Tractor Beam, and Egghead. And Egghead is great. It's just an item that works as a passive item. It's one of those items that's maybe not as exciting, but whenever you pick it up, you know that your run, or maybe your chances to have a good run, kind of improves considerably. And the other 2 items are Tractor Beam and the Parasite. And Tractor Beam is questionable at best. It does maybe have some great benefits like longer range, and I believe your tear delay gets lower, but overall it's an item that maybe when you pick it up, it does change your playstyle to some extent, and you have to get used to that. You can only shoot in 4 cardinal directions, but maybe you have some power over where you shoot, and maybe it's even great that your tears really don't stare off the enemy or where you're trying to shoot them. Of course, by being restricted or only shooting in 4 directions, that also means that you really can't shoot or maybe deal with some enemies as effectively as you could before, but in return you get some other stats or maybe some other benefits that work quite well. So in this case, Tractor Beam is maybe a bit iffy sometimes, but it does have some really fun synergies, like Parasite. And what's great about Parasite, or maybe Tractor Beam, is whenever you shoot any tears or produce any tears, they're also put in the Tractor Beam, so to say, and they follow that same path. So with Parasite, whenever you hit an enemy, your tears split into 2 more shots, and because of Tractor Beam, those 2 shots actually travel with the Tractor Beam and then deal more damage to the enemy. So in this case, because you have Split Shot or Parasite Shot along with Tractor Beam, I said Tractor Beam way too many times, you're essentially tripling your damage output just because you're shooting 3 tears at once at an enemy. And in this case, this is a synergy that works out pretty well. Sadly, what happens later on is, because we have the D6, obviously we try to utilize it the best we can, and I did reroll a Devil Deal. We got a few items which are obviously great, so I believe Contract from Below, I think that's what it's called, and the other one was Brimstone. And with Brimstone, sadly Parasite or Split Shot doesn't really work, and I'm really upset about that. I think this is one of those synergies that should have been fixed or at least added in the game since Afterbirth. Just it makes so much intuitive sense, not intuitive, but you know you can expect what this synergy would do. And of course, when your Brimstone hits a wall or maybe an enemy, it would split into more perpendicular Brimstones, and that would deal also damage. But sadly, it doesn't really work that way, and I'm really upset about it. And this is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. It's nice to have these good items in the game, but it's really disappointing whenever you pick up 2 really cool items, so Split Shot and Brimstone, and they just don't really work together, and you get reduced back to a regular run, which is maybe not that special as it could have been. But nevertheless, we're in this situation, and I'm really glad I picked up Brimstone, because overall the run actually looked pretty bad. It was a weak run even with Brimstone to some extent, and I definitely think that because this is hard mode, because I'm playing this on a Monday, I believe every single Monday daily is a hard mode daily, and because of that, every Monday daily means that not only are there more enemies and more floors, but also means that there are more champions and things like that. So just because the overall difficulty of the games goes up, and especially even with Brimstone, even though we have base damage, I actually did struggle quite a bit, especially with some rooms which are maybe a bit on more of the bullshit side, just because you really don't have much space to dodge them. But it's such a weird concept, because I really feel whenever I play hard mode daily, even though I have a particularly strong run, I really feel like I'm still struggling. I definitely think this one was a prime example of that, because I felt like I was kind of falling behind. I felt like I was playing really slow, but I think the majority of maybe the biggest reason for that is that just the floors overall are much bigger, and I never really experienced this, or at least I didn't really feel the experience of this when I was playing Afterbirth dailies. So again, I'm kind of positive that Afterbirth Plus introduced the hard mode increase of the floors, meaning that if you're playing hard mode, the floors overall will be just much bigger in size. And what's really odd to me, I think it has to do a lot with the dank depths, or at least the alternative versions of the floors. For some reason, I think those floors actually get increased even more than regular floors, and that I think is most apparent where you actually compare some of the depths 1 floors which you can get, which are just huge, as opposed to maybe even like Womb 1 or Womb 2 floors. Obviously, I would expect Womb 1 or Womb 2 to be much bigger, just because they're so much later into the game, but sometimes it ends up happening that depths on floors are actually bigger than both of those combined, which is just ridiculous when you think about it, but it's how the game goes, and you really can't do anything about it. So I think it's important for us as players to kind of accommodate for that. I would imagine a lot of people already did, but in my case, I still feel like I struggle sometimes. I do tend to be faster a bit, so I don't tend to actually miss boss rush like I did maybe a few times at the start, so at least I got that going for me. But in this case, we did get to boss rush, we did find blank card, and we did find the full card. And obviously our plan here is to beat boss rush with brimstone and triple dollar bill. That shouldn't be too much of a difficulty just because we do have those fun synergies going on, and brimstone is obviously great just for dealing with enemies in boss rush because you have infinite range, which means you can essentially be very safe while you're hitting enemies from the opposing side of the room. It also helps that we have flight, which means we can walk over the spikes and the rocks, and of course with spectral tears from brimstone we can just deal with enemies in a much more efficient manner. I think I didn't even get hit once in that particular fight, so that's always encouraging whenever you can beat boss rush without actually getting hit. We picked up some other items which I thought were going to help us, like blank card, for example. I did replace a blank card for my D6, and I definitely think that's the right decision to make in that situation. Maybe not, like, I'm still debating it. Obviously, the blank card is good because you can use it in a lot of different situations, but probably its biggest benefit is finding a Yara rune and then breaking the game that way. And what I thought I was going to do is maybe take the blank card, there's a chance for a sacrifice rune to spawn, and if I don't find a Yara rune on this particular floor, maybe I can find a Yara rune on the dark room. And I really thought that my chances were okay, maybe not the best, but I didn't find it, and it was kind of a upsetting strategy. The other maybe play here would be to take the D6 and maybe try to reroll the devil deal to get a shovel maybe, or maybe take the D6 into the shop and try to get maybe some other items out of that. If I did that, maybe I would have done something better. I definitely think in this particular situation, if you kind of weigh your options, taking this D6 would have been much better. I just picked up a blank card because I have it ingrained into me that it's one of those really good items that you pick whenever you want a good run, but it just didn't turn out really that spectacular for me. I used it once to get out of boss rush, even though I could have used my full card just in the same way. There wasn't any sacrifice room, and sadly I didn't find a way to go forward. So in this case we finished in the 185th spot, not 85, 85th spot, which is obviously quite low when you consider all of the things. I didn't take a lot of damage, I didn't take a lot of items, I managed to explore most of the floors, but just because I didn't find any ways forward, I was kind of gimped because of it, and I'm only left with 22,500 points, which is obviously not ideal, but hey, what can you do about it? These are how mom dailies usually go. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.